All right, so officially episode number 2. Listen, we had the privilege of having Martin as our first guest. I hope the audience, the listeners, appreciate it just as much as we had a lot of fun shooting and filming that first podcast. Today we have the honor of having none other than Juliano Rossi.
They're running out of guests already, clearly.
So just to give you an idea, quick, Juliano, former AEC Financial Group associate, now newly fitness coach. Juliano, I'll maybe give you a few moments just to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So had the fine opportunity of meeting these guys a while back. Really started me on this kind of pursuit of more. I learned a lot from them in terms of like mentality, dedication, discipline. Worked a while in the financial industry, and I realized that it wasn't necessarily what was going to get me to that spot I wanted to go. So I left there, worked in sales for a bit, and then eventually I was like, why haven't I worked in fitness yet? I've been training all these years, super passionate about it. Why not give it a shot? And started training people slowly but surely, putting up like little flyers at my condo. And next thing led to me creating content, a whole business, a brand around it, and enjoying the journey. And we're going to see where that goes. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Just helping people with their nutrition, helping people with their fitness, specifically beginners who are kind of starting off their journey.
That's amazing, man. Well, glad to have you, Jay. And listen, we'd love to talk maybe a bit more about your passage, let's say, in wealth management. Of course, we want to talk more about what you currently do. How's your business going? Of course, what's the reality of being a fitness coach? But can you tell us maybe a bit about what initially drew you to work in wealth management? I know you were always into fitness. It was a big part of your life. You've been training since you're very young. But what led you to start a career in wealth management?
I would say it was like 3 years back now. I was going through a really tough breakup, right? And I kind of hit a wall where I headed back home. I was living with this person, and she was this incredible woman. She had her whole life together, and I kind of realized in that spot, like, this girl is way too good for me. I got back and I'm like, I need to figure out who I am.
Yeah.
Because this person has an entire identity. I don't have any identity. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want to do with my life. So I kind of went through what I'd say a little bit of a depression. And then slowly started picking up the pieces. I was lucky enough to find Sammy on LinkedIn, and I knew Sammy
We knew each other from way back. Yeah.
from way back. He used to be my manager at Econo Fitness, so I was used to him in that attire, right? Him with like a polo telling me to go clean some treadmills and passing me some Windex, right?
Yeah. Never really actually cleaned them.
Nah, I never cleaned them. And yeah, I saw him on LinkedIn. I saw him in this beautiful suit, and I'm like, what is this guy doing? I want to know. So I'm like, hey man, you want to go for a coffee? And in my luck, he was like, yeah, let's do it. And we met up in the morning. We sat down, and I was like, hey man, I don't know what you're doing, but I love how your passion and how your personality is like so well suited for what you seem to be doing. I'd be super interested in like learning more about that. I can train you as an exchange, and then you could tell me more about. So we started training at 5 a.m, which was like 5 hours earlier than I was used to waking up at the time. But I did it. Started the education. The University of Sammy. Learned a lot from him, and decided to jump into wealth management. Made some calls, which basically went like, hey, I have no experience. I don't know anything about finance, but I'm willing to learn. If I have to go get some coffees, if I have to do whatever it takes, I'm in. I caught the interest of one particular recruiter, went through a bunch of interviews, didn't get them, and then finally ended up at RBC Wealth Management in what they call this like rookie pit, which is a collection of associates that kind of help out different advisors. Did well enough to finally get the call from Sammy himself saying, hey man, we built up the business big enough. We'd love to take you on as our associate. And I didn't even think twice about it. I probably left a little too early. Didn't say my goodbyes properly. I probably burned some bridges at RBC, but I was so excited to start off that journey. And yeah, led to like Ironman training, and led to like it was seemed like such a fast kind of progression into that world, and it was an invaluable experience to me. I just learned so much. Yeah, and I mean that's what it was. I think in my mind I kind of wanted to be Warren Buffett. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of a commonality in the I'd say my failures early on in life is like not so much like, hey, I want to, like I am now, I want to help people and we'll see where it goes. But it was more of like I want to become this person. I want to become Warren Buffett. When I went into sales, I want to become Jordan Belfort. I want to be the Wolf of Wall Street, right? And it didn't last. I was so focused on the objective. But yeah, man, you got me really into wanting to be the next Warren Buffett. So that's how I ended up there.
Very nice, man. And what would you say, like, were some of the most rewarding, let's say, traits you got from working in the field? Whether it's, at AEC, whether it was when you worked at RBCDS, some of the skill sets, man, that you now can take with you and you can apply in your current path in your current career.
I would say, I mean, there's definitely a massive dichotomy between financial management and the fitness world. I think it gives me a bit of an edge because I think it's just in terms of what you learn when you work in a corporate structure, it's just organization, how to structure yourself, how to go the extra mile, especially working in relationship management to make people feel special. Sending a little confirmation email in the morning, which I never did when I was with you guys, was starting my business. I'm like,
It's good to know you're doing it now.
yeah, I'm doing it now. And like, that's gone a long way. And just being able to kind of, I think, refine me as a professional. I think that's the biggest thing I got from that world. Also, I think that just financial literacy is something they don't teach us in school.
Absolutely.
But damn, it's so valuable. Just to understand, like, how does a credit card actually work? Like, I've had so many people tell me, like, hey, I pay the minimum, so like I haven't been paying interest, right? And I'm like, oh, that's not how that works. Like, you might want to dive into the details there. So just learning about, like, okay, this is how you can invest your money if you want to. This is how you can use your money. I think that has given me the confidence to not be in that, like, I have to save every penny mode where it's like I can actually manipulate my money and I can use my line of credit because I'm investing in my future and I could move it here and I could move it there.
100%.
I think that was the big value it provided to my life, of just having that confidence that I know what I'm doing with my money, so I can play around with it a little bit more freely.
100%, man. 100%.
That makes a lot of sense, man. And I'm glad to hear also that, investing in yourself, in wealth management, we talk a lot about, investing in different type of assets or how you're planning for retirement. You made a move where you decided to invest primarily in yourself, start your own business, change fields, which is amazing. What would you say, Jay, are some of the skills that through your career in wealth management you developed and that you're probably currently using today?
I would say, well, definitely the organizational aspect is one of them. I'd say working with you guys specifically, not just in wealth management, but specifically with you guys, the structure of like each wealth management team is kind of their own entrepreneur. They have their own business.
Yeah.
Just being able to see your business from a bunch of different views, I think has been really good for me, because I realized going into the fitness world, there's a very narrow view into like, okay, I gotta be really jacked. I gotta be in really good shape. I have to make myself look really good so I can train as many people as I want.
Yeah.
And then I am getting to a point where I don't even like my clients anymore because I got 10, 12 clients in a day and I'm just running myself really thin, and it's like money, money, money. Because it's like they maybe they weren't given the opportunity or the education to see the big picture and to learn how your biggest asset is your time, right? It's not the money you have, it's how you're using that time, how you're investing, and how you're learning how to kind of better certain aspects of your business. You know, if it's whether it's finding a good CRM platform to take care of your clients, whether it's signing yourself off on a platform like Zoho to make sure your invoicing is crisp, all of that stuff, being able to look at the big business as a whole, not only helps the business grow, but allows you to really focus in on each individual client, learn from them, really appreciate that experience. And I think that has made it so that I'm becoming a better trainer, I'm becoming a better coach with every client that I have. These are all skills that I developed working with you guys, for sure.
Okay, makes sense, man. And you said it well. I think, like, at the end of the day, and the beauty of wealth management is you work under a banner, you become an entrepreneur, right? So you have that exposure to, building a business. You have that exposure to making sure that you can scale properly. If you reinvest in yourself, you reinvest in your team. And I think that's something that you probably also took now in the world of fitness. And it's also a direct service, right? Like, you service clients in wealth management, you manage their emotions. I mean, this is a direct correlation to fitness, right? I think it's one of the most emotional types of conversations that you might have with a human being, is talking about their health, their fitness, and their 100%. Weight, But and just maybe out of curiosity, man, like, how was the reaction of your friends, your family, people in your entourage when you decided to take that leap and start your career in fitness?
Before I jump in, I just want to say that's an excellent point that I didn't state. I think that's something that we often don't talk enough about in like training and dealing with other people, is the being able to have the skill to like put yourself in other people's shoes. Yeah. Right? How do they think? Yeah. Right? That's how you're going to help them. You're not going to tell them how you think, how you feel, what works for you, and it's going to work for them. Don't work like that. Like, how are they wired? How do they tick? Figure that out. Then you can really help them. Yeah. Because now you can kind of manipulate all of the variables to be around them and their life. That's when things become really effective. So that's a great point. I think I learned that from wealth management, working in customer service for like 10 years. Yeah. Right? It's just like, how can I make it the least about me so I can learn the most about them so I can deliver a better service. So that's a great point.
100%. And just adapting to your audience, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, for example, the fact that you went to like a high school like Lauren Hill, right, made you be able to adapt to different cultures, different people, different backgrounds, right? And I think this is a skill set that you run with for the rest of your life, which allows you to adapt to different types of clients that you're meeting on a day-to-day basis.
It's definitely what I got from public school. The organization had to come later because it didn't come from public school. Yeah. But yeah, when it comes to the people around me, I mean, it's tough because, again, I'm always putting myself in their shoes, and it's like, if say I was, if my son, right, was in a situation where he was working for a corporation, working for a big bank, had a job, was getting benefits, all of that, moving towards something, was studying and all that, and he decided, hey, I'm going to drop out of school, and I don't know how I'm going to make my next dollar, but I'm going to figure it out. Like, that's not very inspiring, right? Like, I mean, I don't blame anyone around me for like doubting what I was doing. But I think that's kind of also what I learned from you guys, is just like, most of that stuff is noise. Like, if you really believe in what you're doing, if you really believe in yourself, you can appreciate people for what they have and not kind of villainize them for what they're not giving you. Yeah. Because you don't need it from them. You have yourself, you have the people around you, right? And here's a big thing that I realized. People will never believe in you if they don't believe in themselves, right? So guys like you, I love talking to because you believe in yourselves. So of course you're going to believe in what I'm doing. 100%. Like, if I can do it, why can't you, right? And that's how I see things too. People who, I think most people don't necessarily, they go through a certain path, right? We go to school, and then we get married, and then we get a mortgage, and we go through, and we're not taught to think, right? We're not like, what do I actually really want?
It's just natural progression.
Natural progression, right? And like, And like I don't even know if it's natural. Like it's just a societal progression, right? It's what we're kind of like constrained to do. So it's like they never really go through maybe the hardships or the failures or the depressions or whatever it is to like actually figure out who they are as a person. I think those are the things that make you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And like actually figure out like, what am I passionate about? What am I good at? What do people actually what kind of impact can I actually have on this world? If you figure that out on your own and you believe in that, I think everything else is just kind of noise.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's extremely important what you're saying, man. I feel like if you talk to different entrepreneurs or business owners or people that have a lot of success today in whatever they do, there was that period of time where, you know, they didn't have their shit figured out, right? Or it got extremely hard and they didn't know how to push through, but they still did it anyways, right? And it's that period. It doesn't last necessarily super long, but you know, you have a year where it's much harder for yourself. You get out of your comfort zone, you push through adversaries, and when you come out on top of that time where you felt that you had the whole world on your shoulders, it's really those moments that shape you, right? And then you have the self-confidence, the ambition to push through your projects, just like you did, right? You went through, like you said, a period of time where it was a bit harder for you, and
For sure.
at some point you said, you know what, like this is not for me. I've done it. Let me focus on what I really like, what I'm really passionate about, and you know, you're killing it today, right? So how was that shift, right? So we talked about, you know, your early career in wealth management. How was the shift? What made you think that, you know, after leaving wealth management, that was the right thing to do? It's probably something that was in the back of your mind for a long time, right?
I wouldn't say necessarily right away, because I really wanted to be a wealth manager, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the advantages that I've had that most people don't have is I strongly believe in the concept of like all of these things that I talked about, right? The getting married, the going to school, the getting more, they're, in a sense, they're kind of anchors.
Yeah.
When I say they're anchors, is like when something happens to you, right? And like you may want to change, right? There might be something in the back of your head saying like, okay, something is off here. Maybe we can change direction. You have other pressures in your life telling you to not think about those things, right? Like you might have a family to take care of, right? You might have some financial responsibilities. So you can't really dive into those thoughts too long. You have to keep like, okay, what's the next job in finance?
Yeah.
How am I gonna like, okay, I can deviate, but like I worked up all of this experience and people don't see it as experience in themselves, that they see it as like experience in finance. I have to stick to finance. Let me just continue down this path. I live alone, right? I'm not responsible for anyone but myself. And I think I'm very lucky like that, because when I stopped, I went through a really hard time of being completely like, I let myself embrace the suck. And like, I spent probably a month, 2, maybe even 3 months, just like being completely useless. And I'm talking about like smoking, like doing drugs I shouldn't have done, like weed. I've never really dove outside of that. Probably get hooked real quick, so it's a good thing. But yeah, just getting into like my little vices, allowing myself to be completely useless. And like, I think with time, learning that those periods are okay. And once you're done with that period, once you're like, okay, I let myself shed the old skin.
Yeah.
I'm not a financial manager anymore, right? Like that's over. You let yourself kind of mourn it, and however you want to mourn it. You don't have to smoke and do drugs like me. You mourn it in your own ways, right? Then you have the time, and you actually have the bandwidth to be able, like, what's next for me?
Yeah.
What do I dive into next? And you do that by soaking in as much information as possible, like being willing to learn, being able to like, okay, maybe I don't see it now. Yeah. So let me watch some podcasts. Let me watch some YouTube videos. Let me watch something that maybe something might resonate with me, and it might be like an indicator of like, this is my next thing. And I think it was just that. I think it was just my ability and my freedom to be able to really just allow myself to not kind of have to meet any expectations, just be completely useless for a certain amount of time, shed that old skin. And then the minute I shed that old skin, it's like, okay, what's next? And then you're all into what's next.
Yeah.
Right. And then you dive into that, and then you learn, you soak that up, and then you move on to that journey.
Okay, good point. But how did you discover like the what's next? Like, how did it click and say like, okay, it's fitness, it's personal training. It's,
Well, in that process,
yeah,
of like, just like, okay, what are the things now that I've let myself kind of fall off? What are the things that help me feel good about myself?
Yeah.
And I think that I was watching in this process, I was watching some interview by Steve Harvey.
Okay.
And he was talking to some guy, and the guy was like, yeah, you know, man, I'm like a software engineer, but I really hate my job and I love to cook. He's like, so why aren't you cooking, man? Why don't you follow that? It's like, I don't know, because like I don't know if I can do it. And then he's like, listen, whatever you're doing right now, it's just getting in the way of you cooking. Figure out what you got to do to cook. And I'm like, what are the things that I would do if I wasn't getting paid for it? And I was looking back, and I'm like, it always goes back to fitness. Always goes back to fitness. Anytime I'm having a bad day, if I train, I'm feeling better.
Yeah.
If I go to the gym and someone's like, hey, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey man, try this. Like I did that for free for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like I loved it.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I'm doing it for free, if I'm doing it to literally help my well-being, even when it's not attached to the dollar, why can't I attach it to the dollar? Why can't I actually try this? And I think the only answer, which I finally figured out, is simply fear. Simply the fear of like, if something this special to me, if I dive into it, if I fail,
Yeah.
what does that say about me? And what is that going to do to the thing that's so special to me? Once you get over that, then it's a no-brainer. And that's what I realized. It's like, I have nothing to lose, because I was at that point, right? At that rock bottom. I have nothing to lose. So let me try it.
What's the
And
worst that could happen, right?
what's the worst that could happen?
Makes sense, bro. And maybe quick question. Obviously, I know you from way back, so I know you were always like really passionate about fitness. You were extremely talented. You took it very seriously. But when you decided to make that jump, like how did you go and educate yourself? How did you go and get the accreditations, all that? What was like really the next steps you took? And potentially there's a kid out there that's listening to you that wants to become a personal trainer and wants to understand, okay, what's my next few moves that I need to take?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that luckily for me, in the time I spent over a decade training, I learned enough to be able to hear someone and be like, this guy knows what he's talking about. And to listen to another guy and be like, this guy's genetically gifted. And that's a good thing, because he don't know what he's talking about, right? And I discovered through that process, again, Steve Harvey, all these guys. One of those guy was named Dr. Mike Israetel. And like, shout out to Dr. Mike Israetel, legend, right? Changed my life. And he has this whole new approach to things. And he turned something which I always saw as this like thing that like really macho, insecure men do to kind of put on muscle and like to feel better about themselves, as this, no, this is a science. This is a place where science meets art. And I'm like, wait, this guy got a doctorate in this thing? And like, he talks about it, like literally breaks it down to the molecular level. And like, I can actually feel like a scientist about something that I love this much. Like, I'm all in.
Yeah.
So I would say based on that is just like being able, through all of these amazing social platforms that we have, whatever it is, whatever your preferred places to kind of pick up information, could be an audiobook, right? Could be a podcast. Find someone that resonates with you and someone who is very proficient in what he does.
Yeah.
And just ride that wave, learn from him, soak up as much as possible. That guy will lead you to where you need to go. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? You don't have to like figure anything out. Just follow him, learn from him. Be willing to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I can learn more. And those guys will take you lots of places.
Okay. Amazing. And just quick, before we jump to the next question. So did you also make sure you get certain certifications? Like, did you do any licenses, anything of that nature to become a
Yeah, for
certified?
sure. I think that it goes back to like it goes back to like as a business owner, like what is going to be important for my clients. Like me thinking that I trained for 10 years and I know what I'm talking about, like what good does that do for someone else?
Yeah.
Why don't I take the time to actually do an accreditation, right? Which I did with the ISSA online.
Yeah.
Right. And go out and like actually use that as an opportunity to learn. But more importantly, to say that like I actually am dedicated enough to this where I want to like actually get some kind of, how do I say this? Some kind of assurance for my clients that I can help them.
So credibility, basically.
Credibility, right? Because at the end of the day, no matter what you believe you have, right? No matter how great of a salesman you are, like people do care about these things, right? People want to know that you did the work to make sure that you are a professional. So yeah, there's all kinds of different spots in the fitness world. You could do this online. You can do this. I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of like actual shops that you can go to, like, right, where you can do this in person and learn from someone. I'm sure there is. Clearly, I'm not an expert in this thing. But yeah, man, I think that the accreditation, to be perfectly honest, I think it's important for appearances. It's important if you're actually going to learn from it. But that's not where you're going to learn the bulk of your information.
Yeah.
Right? That's going to come from your experiences. 100%. That's going to come from those guys that you learn from, that you follow. That's where you'll get your stuff.
100%.
And Jay, what would you say, like, you said that training was always a passion of yours. And I think you're right, man. In the first place, if you want to make a business out of something, you got to follow your passion first and the money will come, right? We hear this saying all the time. For you, when was that switch where it became really a business, right? You were in that pit for 3 months and then you came out of it. Fitness was your go-to. You're like, let me give this a try. How did your mind switch when you said, okay, I'm going to make this serious. This is going to become a business. And what are some of the things that you did to actually, start the business and monetize that?
I mean, at the beginning, it was just like, how do I get clients, right? Because like I need to pay the rent.
Yep.
Like me sitting at home and like doing nothing and being useless, like that don't pay the rent.
Yeah.
So being able to like just like, okay, I'm confident about this. I'm feel pretty confident in being able to sell, right? So like let me just find a couple clients and let me start training people. I went to gyms before I even did this, and like, hey, I'm gonna train at a gym. I'm gonna start there. I'm gonna learn, not focus about anything else. Just be a great trainer.
Yeah.
And spoke to a bunch of them, and they were like, yeah, we're willing to take you on, but we're gonna take like 60% of your margins. And I was like, okay, what are you giving me in the process? They're like, well, you can train people at our facilities. I'm like, are you gonna market for me, or are you gonna do? They're like, no, but you could train people here. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do this, because I'm gonna be charging people $140 an hour just so I can pay my rent. So I was like, okay, let me find some actual clients. Okay, so I started with 2 or 3. And then I realized that, okay, I can work this engine.
Yeah. And
okay,
where do you find them? Like condo?
Condo, some at the condo, some at, just because like I've been working, like don't be shy to go out in your like old phone list and like people who kind of like
cold call.
I mean, I don't think it's cold at this point because I'm talking about people who are in your contacts. This should be warm, right? It should be like, hey, how you been, man? You remember how you used to love training with me? Like, I'm a trainer now. Like, you want me to train you? Like, you go through that, right? Obviously not like that because that doesn't inspire much confidence. But being like, hey, I just want to let you know, I was always the fitness guy. I decided to actually do this and take this seriously.
Yeah.
I would love to take you on as a client. And I mean, a lot of people will tell you to do it for free if you have the ability to do it for free. If you have the money to pay do it. But I genuinely think that like if you're willing to spend a lot of time into helping someone, they'll pay you for it.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
pay you for it. There's a number that they'll be willing to pay you for it. And you start there and then you build up. And yeah, I started there. And then I quickly realized that just like finding people by texting them from that I knew in the past, through my building, word of mouth, that like, okay, I can build this quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then I started realizing that, okay, like I'm starting to lose my passion here. I'm starting to lose my passion here. It's dwindling. My bandwidth is running thin. So now I'm like, okay, I need to big picture think here. I need to like, how do I make sure this is sustainable, right, into the long run? And I think this was the thing that was really important that I never had. Fitness is the love of my life. Right, like I find it very hard to believe I will ever meet a woman that I will marry that if she asked me the question, you got to choose me or the gym, I would tell her the door is right there, right? Like I would leave her in a second. I love.
At least you're honest.
We'll cut this one out.
I love fitness. So I was always trying to protect that passion. So the minute I was like, oh, this is ruining my passion for it, I'm like, okay, I got to adapt.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm taking too much clients. How many clients do I need to actually meet my financial requirements, make a budget, be able to, okay, I can survive off of this. The rest of my time, I can do things like creating content, right? Like training, getting into a better physique, things that spark my entrepreneurial side, right? Like you want to take care of all sides. If you're just in that like technician mode of like work, eventually like you're gonna be uninspired.
That's amazing, man. And you know what? It's exactly that, because it's taking the time off, taking the foot off the pedal to say, you know what? I've been working my ass off in the business, but I'm not working on the business anymore, right? And it's the same thing in our field. It's very hard. It's extremely hard to do, because as you see success, you just want to keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
And then those anchors set in, right?
Right,
As
exactly.
You move
and you
up.
go back to like, just being in a routine and a cycle where you're just doing the same thing over and over again, but you're not improving. Your business is not necessarily growing or going in the right direction. So again, props to you, man. It's not an easy thing to do, especially early on in your business. It's been what now, a couple of months, right?
It's been like, I think a little under a year. But yeah, I think like on that topic, I think there's a commonality in all of these things that have led to success, and that's that like allow yourself to go through things that will potentially lead to failure.
Yeah.
Right. And allow yourself to sometimes take the foot off the gas.
Yeah.
Right. And allow yourself to not always have to meet your expectations, everybody else's expectations. Because if you keep moving on that line, eventually your passion, your work ethic, your organization will begin to dwindle, and that will fall inevitably. So
100%.
take care of it in a proactive manner by like dedicating yourself to like, I need to take care of my mind. I need to take care of my well-being as much as I need to take care of my success, as much as I need to take care of my ambition.
100%, man. And by the way, I liked what you said earlier. We were talking about, the value and how much, for example, someone is willing to pay for your services. That's the thing, man. And you see it in our industry as well. If there's value in what you do, if you provide value and good customer service, I'm saying impeccable customer service, people are willing to pay, man. And that's what a lot of people like kind of cut them short. They'll undercharge, or they'll kind of be shy to charge a higher fee potentially because they think that person is not gonna be willing to pay that price. But that's not true, man. There's always going to be people out there, and I'm sure you have success stories of clients that have told you, you know what, man, I would have been willing to pay even more than what you charge me.
Probably all of them.
Yeah.
Probably all of them.
And maybe two things. I'm curious to know how your background in wealth management, seeing us, incorporate business development, sales as being one of, the biggest tasks in our day-to-day. How did you use that eventually to grow your business? And number two, very curious as well to know is when you're starting off, right, in fitness, same way we started off in wealth management, we built our book, we built our group, our team. Like, how does that really truly look like? You know, and I know everyone sees kind of the successes of being an entrepreneur, doesn't really see the sacrifices, you know, the emotional drainage, all that comes with it. So maybe talk to me a bit about that as well.
Yeah, I think when it comes to that, I think that everybody's everybody's journey will be a little bit different, right? I think, but what it comes down to is that like, in order to get something,
Yeah.
you have to be willing to give up something, right? Jim Rohn, who's like this OG salesman, motivational speaker, love the man. He basically has this very simple line that says that if you want your life to change, you have to change, right? You will never be able to achieve something more if you continue exactly who you are and what you're doing, right? So in that, if you want big things, if you aspire to big things, you're gonna have to let go of some things, right? And I think that we hear a lot about that stuff, right? Like sacrifice, like go all in. We might not necessarily talk enough about like what that sacrifice is like,
Yeah.
you know? And I think when it comes to that, that's why it's so important to like find people who are also kind of similar in their ambitions and on that journey, so you can like actually confide in them and be like, hey, you know, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. Do you like, I love talking to you for that, right? Calling you and be like, hey man, I'm losing my mind, this is what I'm going through, and you're like, this is normal. And just being able to like hear someone say, you know, like this is normal,
Someone that can
right?
relate.
And
Exactly.
you as well, back in the day when we were working, I'd have those conversations. You're like, Jay, like, yeah man, this is gonna happen. And it's like, okay, I'm okay. But like, yeah, you will have times, right, where it's very lonely, and especially as you strive for something, understand that like your goal is to become 1%,
Yeah.
right? You're trying to outdo everyone else. You're trying to create something special that's never been done.
Yeah.
That means that you're going to be like no one else. As you continue to strive there, you will probably relate less and less to most people,
Yeah.
right? And you have to be okay with that. But that's not easy, right? That comes with like we're all social creatures. We all want to be loved, right? We all want to see someone and be the one to make them smile and not make them cry,
Yeah.
you know? So it definitely just, I think it goes back to like how much do you want it? How clear are you on your actual goals? And then being able to allow yourself to like, okay, some of the times I'm going to be sad. Some of the times I'm going to be lonely. Some of the times I'm going to be angry and anxious and all of that stuff. And just being able to be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
Ride the wave. You know, and another thing I learned from the wealth management is the markets, right? If you look at the markets, people who lose the most money are the ones that think they're going to beat the markets. They're pulling out. And you guys have these
Trying to time
conversations
it.
all the time,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Like how many people were you telling like, don't sell Meta? Trust me, don't sell Meta, right? People were selling Meta. Oh, Meta's going bankrupt. Okay, then why do you go outside and 10 people are on their phone and 8 of them are on one of their apps? Like, does that make sense? Because like it's just like people are not patient. People are like
They want everything right now.
Yeah, they want everything, and when they're feeling, yes, it's our instinct, right? It's what our stress does to us. We want to get out of that stress.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I need that immediate gratification to get out of it, but like it you gotta ride the wave, because on the other side of the wave, and this is who has the most success in the markets, are the ones to be like, this will pass, as
Yeah.
all things do,
Yeah.
right? And I will reap the rewards for it if I'm patient.
Just like in business, man. Like there's no free lunch, and to be in the top 1%, it's not gonna take you 6 months. It's not gonna take you a year. You're gonna have to reinvent yourself probably like 5 times, 10 times.
Yeah.
You know, figure out how to change your business, how to push it to the next level, and it's gonna take a lot of time, just like in the markets, right? So I think it's a great analogy. And I wanted to ask you, man, like, so tell us maybe a bit about the success stories you've been having, whether it's with your clients or in the business right now. Some of the things that really really made you proud and not regret doing your move since you started.
I think like, I mean, my favorite story is that like I met I met this woman very early in my journey, and she's someone who been struggling with obesity her whole life, and she had the will, she had the discipline, she just didn't have the tools, and she didn't have someone to believe in her.
Yeah.
You know, and like being able to work with her for the time that we did. And she's probably one of my best friends now, you know?
Oh, yeah?
She's a woman in like her late 50s, and like I
Oh,
love
that's
this
insane.
woman. It's awesome. We formed a bond. But like just being able to like give her the passion, like give her the tools, and not give her the passion. She had the passion, but just to spark the fire, right? And give her the tools to be able to do something with that fire. And now like I go to the gym and like she's in there by herself in the dark with her headphones and she's training. And she texts me all the time. She's like, she says she has all these kind words to say about me that I wouldn't even feel comfortable saying right now, you know? But it
Say a few.
like it, it's so like she legitimately calls me her angel. She's like, you came and saved me.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like those are powerful words, you know, and just the fact that I had an impact on like that
course.
at the beginning of this journey, I'm like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. I love that feeling. And I think that's one of the things that like makes me kind of always strive to become a better trainer, right? To become a better coach is the really that like I want to feel that, right? I want to feel like, hey man, you changed my life, and like I get to do that with each of my clients in different ways. That's been really fulfilling. That's been awesome. On the content side, I never had social media before this.
Yeah.
You know, I was always that guy to like shut it off, be like, yeah, social media ruins us. You know, it's terrible for us. You know, enjoy the real world. I was that guy because I was
Yeah.
just intimidated by it, right? Which most people do. But I finally got into it. I'm like, okay, this is inevitable. I'm gonna have to do this, and I realized how creative I am.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand that before I started doing that, but doing these videos, but putting together these videos, writing the scripts, you know, like picking the different like, okay, what's the hook here? How are we gonna make this interesting? How are we gonna make this simple enough for people to actually get something and like make it visually appealing and entertaining at the same time? That's been so fun. It's been more successful than I thought it was gonna be. We just started a partnership with Anytime Fitness.
Yes, sir.
And
Congrats.
yeah, thank you. A little pilot project. They looked at my followers and they're like, okay, there's going to be probationary. We don't know if we could sign off to this yet. But yeah, actually doing videos with them and like getting so much good feedback from people, being like, hey, I love your videos. It helped me a lot. That's been awesome. And yeah, man, it really comes down to that. It comes down to like the how much I've really been loving helping other people,
Yeah.
and how much I've been really loving becoming successful, living my life to the fullest and really enjoying it. Those have been the two things that have been the biggest success for me. So I think if I had to say, like, give any kind of like recommendation to anyone, I'm not a success story. I'm far from it. Hopefully one day I will be. I actually have a lot of confidence that I will be one day. And that's because I really enjoy what I'm doing.
For sure, man.
Right. And I think that's the secret. If you're going to be able to bear the suck and the ups and downs and all of those moments, because most of them won't be rewarding.
Yeah,
Right. That's just the reality of being an entrepreneur. 9 times out of 10 is gonna suck and you might doubt
100%.
yourself and all of that.
Yeah.
But if you enjoy the process, you it's all worth it. It's all worth it.
100%, man. You know, like that's the thing we always say, Tony and I, man. I think like to be a successful wealth advisor, or pretty much in any industry, man, you gotta love it. You gotta be able to learn it. So you gotta put in the time and the work to always make sure that you bring that ego down, and you know that you're not a master of that craft, and you can always get better. Right? That comes back from Kobe.
Socrates. The one thing I know is that I know nothing at all.
100%, man. And the third one is obviously the work ethic, right? If you mix the love for what you're doing, the passion, you're willing to continue educating yourself on that craft, and you put in the time, compound it over time, man, you will achieve great things, man, in that area. But I love what you mentioned as well. Extremely fulfilling, man. Like I'll give you an example. For us, we directly impact the client's financial health, right? At the end of the day, when we are able to know that our clients are going to reach their financial goals, their objectives, they're going to be able to put their kids through school, they're going to be able to finally lead that retirement that they always dreamt of, and,
It's huge.
and yeah, it's extremely rewarding for us, and I think it's the same thing for you. I think these are beautiful industries where you change people's lives, in your case directly with their health. So honestly, man, props on that, bro. It's very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
Also, quick question. Very interested to know a bit more of your current structure in terms of building the business. I know you're a big proponent on reinvesting. You have a videographer right now. You are reinvesting, whether it's in paid ads, whether it's in marketing and socials and getting the right equipment. Putting in a lot of time of working on the business and not necessarily in the business. Tell me a bit about that. What's the long play here?
I mean, there's two sides to that. And the first side is like, I'll bring it back to like finance. Warren Buffett's right-hand man, who we lost, Charlie Munger,
Yes, sir.
was a voice of wisdom, and like super, like, would say the driest, most simple, funniest thing you've ever heard, but like it would be everything you needed to hear. And they always used to ask him, like, if you had one piece of advice to anybody trying to take care of their finances, what would it be? And you would think it's like, okay, invest in this, that's what he does for a living.
Yeah.
He's just like, control your costs. That's all he used to say. It was like, can you tell me anything more? Control your costs.
Yeah.
And like, I think I realized that, like, if you truly want to kind of aspire to something bigger, you can't get used to nice things very early, right? So like being able to like live your life in a very modest way.
Yeah.
Right. And here it comes back to like really enjoying what you're doing. Because if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're going to want to buy nice things and you're going to want to go out to restaurants and all that stuff. Right. So if you enjoy what you're doing, that gives you the fulfillment in your life. Being able to like have like 3 t-shirts in your closet, right?
Yeah.
Being able to like I came to a podcast today, like these are what I train in.
I think
right?
these are the only ones I've ever seen.
I need another pair of black pants, that's for sure. But yeah, just being able to control those costs. I think part of the reinvesting is because I'm kind of like, I don't really want to build a nest egg right now. I just kind of want to build the future.
Yeah.
So that's a part of it, right? Because it allows me to get comfortable with being broke, right?
That's amazing.
And the other side of it is like, I think that for me, as I'm investing in my future, right, it just makes me feel more confident in the decisions I'm making, because no one decision will be the right decision. There's that famous line that success is not about choosing the right answer, it's about eliminating the wrong ones. So I think just being able to like put my money into different things, trying new forms of content, and try this, try that, try this advertisement, like doing that, investing in all kinds of different ways. Like eventually I'll stumble on something that works.
Yeah.
Just that process gives me a lot of confidence that I'm moving towards something good. I don't know if there's one good thing to invest in right now. From what I'm seeing, like the Gary V's talking all about like organic content is going to take over.
Yeah.
So like just being able to find, you guys got the Zohan here, who's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Being able to find your version of this. And like, I was lucky enough to meet Josh, which is JT_limitless on Instagram. You should check it out. And he basically, I met him one day at the gym. He was this like young 17-year-old kid, and he was just posing. Like he had the most confidence in the world. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, okay, you posing like you Ronnie Coleman right now, but you just started training. Like, how did you get this confidence? And like we started talking, and he told me all about the fact that like, yeah, he films, he's super passionate about it, he wants to start this, that. So I was like, okay, let me invest in this relationship, right? Like let me get to know him. Let me start filming with him. And now he's my full-time videographer. Without him, I would not make nearly the level of content that I'm making. So being able to like have a partner and like, I think produce really good content, right? That speaks to your specific audience, like you guys are doing right now. I think that's a huge place to invest right now. Just the fact that we have an opportunity to kind of like deal with the big players
Yeah.
and like be on the same playing field where like one video could get us to all of this exposure.
Exactly.
Who knows? I think that's super exciting. So, I mean, and at the same time, you're building a portfolio. When someone comes to your page, right? We talked about this earlier, like they already know you, right? They're already willing to buy before they even talk to you and have the conversation with you. You don't have to be a salesman. You can be just someone who wants to help because they're already sold, right? And that's amazing. I really think, I mean, I was never into social media, and I think that's how important it is. I'm like, I need to get really good at making this content. I think organic content is an incredible place that I'm just going to keep investing more and more money into.
Yeah. And it takes time, man. Like, I think a lot of people that get into that, they most of them make the same mistake. They have that, you know, boost of confidence and motivation at the beginning where they're putting out there so much content, and they don't see results right away. Again, we spoke about that, right?
Yeah.
And they stop after 6 months. But it takes years. That's what's good. I think, like you mentioned it, it's easier than ever to create content. Yes, there is a cost. Yes, you need to have a strategy. Yes, you need to understand what you're doing, but it's easier than ever. People are attracted to organic, authentic content.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard to put out there. What's hard is
nobody's stopping you.
Exactly.
That's what's amazing about it.
That's it. And the other thing is that it's hard to get to a point where you establish that credibility, that brand, that attachment with your audience, let's say. This takes years. And this is something that maybe not a lot of people talk about because, you know, you get in there, start filming a bunch of stuff, put it out there, and 6 months later, that person's nowhere to be found, right?
Yeah.
So no, man, I think that's amazing, and you're doing the right thing. You just gotta compound that, of course, over years.
Yeah, and going back to like listen to the experts. Find that whatever you're doing, right? Before I started creating content, like I wanted to listen to Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
What does Mr. Beast have to say about content? The first video I ever saw, he's like, "Hey, man, just make videos." And I think a lot of people are like, hey, you have to make the most videos as possible because, like Gary Vee says this all the time too, because that's what's going to get you, that's what's going to get you the followers. But that's not necessarily how they mean it. Yeah. What they're saying is make a lot of content so that with every video, you can get a little better, you can refine your skills. Because Mr. Beast literally has an interview where he's like, I can promise you the first 100 videos, nobody's going to watch them. So don't worry about like the fine little details. Yeah. Just make content, right? And I think that's what it comes down to. It's like, do you enjoy making the content? If you don't, find a way to enjoy it. Because if you don't enjoy it, it's going to be really frustrating. Yeah. Right? Because it is not going to be an immediate success 100%. Story. And the things that will lead you to immediate success are probably things along the lines that are maybe a little bit more entertaining. Yeah. And is that what's going to sell people on your business, right? If you have a dance on TikTok, 100%. Right? Or you have something that you go, like if you go up and you just go on the streets, you find an old lady, you slap the old lady in the face, you're going to get 100,000 views on that. Yeah, be a terrible thing to do, probably get a lot of dislikes. You're going to get a lot of views on that. Yeah. Is that going to sell someone on your business? Probably not.
Yeah, that's the downside, I would say, with viral content. It doesn't last, right? There's let's say a huge peak, and then potentially people start kind of fading and losing interest with any like huge story that breaks. But like Tony said, man, I think the thing with social is it's delayed gratification, right? You're going to be posting so you can potentially get a client in 6, 12, 18 months from now, right? It takes time to build a brand. It takes time to turn your follower into a fan, right? It's not done overnight. And it goes back to our conversation that we said earlier. You got to do what the 99% are not willing to do, right? If you want to get into the top 1%. And most people start on social, try it for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, have zero success, have no potential leads that come from it, and give up because they say, hey, this definitely doesn't work. Man, it's trial and error, and you got to do it for 3 to 5 years minimum before, again, obviously, depending on the fact that you go viral or not, or depending on if you use a lot of, you reinvest in a lot of paid ads and so on and so forth. But in most industries, it will take years for you to build that solid credibility. And delayed gratification, unfortunately, is something that not everyone nowadays is correct and okay with, right? Goes back to the gym.
We're not wired for it,
Yeah,
man.
it goes back to the gym, right? Like,
we're not wired for it.
how many people do you meet that are needing to train and eat properly for 2, 3, 4 years before they could really see big results, right? That's the biggest issue with the gym, is you don't go to the gym and the next morning you wake up ripped, or you don't eat properly or at a caloric deficit for 2 days and you shed 50 pounds. It takes time and it's compounded.
Yeah. I mean, 3 to 4 years would be like you look good if you do things right for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, you did, like, we joke about it. I literally have people, like, and I think they joke when they say it, but like they want to say it because they're like kind of hoping that I'm gonna be like, no, that's actually the reality. They're like, hey man, like if I train for like 3-4 months, you know, like I'm gonna look like you, right? And it's like, dude, like I wish I could do that for you. That make me really happy. But like, dude, I've been doing this for 12 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what it's the time. You got to put time in the chair. And like, that's why it always comes back to like, I think a lot of the conversations, like I see this on social, there's this big trend of like, you are the 1%, right?
Yeah.
You are different. And it's like, I don't like looking at things like that. I think we're all human beings. We're all the same.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, it's like, okay, 99% of people failed. Why did they fail? Ask yourself the question, dissect it. If you go down to the nitty gritty, probably comes down to the fact that they didn't enjoy it. They didn't enjoy it. They weren't passionate about it. Because I strongly believe if you are truly passionate about something, if you truly love something, if something is truly if it's special enough to you in what it's actually doing for you in the world, the laziness is gonna fade.
Yeah.
I love being lazy. Like when I first 24 years of my life, if there was a profession that paid me to like sit on a couch and like watch Netflix, I'd be rich. I'd be rich. I love doing that. I love doing that, right?
Billionaire.
I'd be a billionaire, right? And my parents used to look at me like, "Oh, like you really like you're really good at this." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good at this. I love chilling." But it's like it's part of it is because I wanted to turn my mind off because I knew there was nothing calling me. I didn't know what my purpose was. So I think a lot of people who like aren't part of that 1%, unfortunately, maybe they weren't able to have the time, or maybe they just didn't spend enough time actually being able to go out in the world and discover that thing that's going to take them off the couch. Everybody has that. Nobody is different. We all have that calling. We just have to find what that calling is. 100%. I strongly believe that.
Love it, man.
Jay, man, it's been a solid hour. We could keep on going for probably another 1 or 2 hours. Just maybe on a closing statement, what would you give as advice for someone that is either considering maybe a career in fitness, or that is going through that same moment you went through maybe a year ago, where you're like, I don't know if this is for me, man, and I need to find what my passion is. Do you have any advice for someone going through that at the moment?
Yeah, I think that first and foremost, I think that you need to quickly make an account of what's around you in your life. You have to quickly let go of the things that are holding you back to the old you, that are not essential to what you're doing now or where your future you will go. I think you have to look at the people around you in your life, and you have to be able to be like, okay, I love you, but I need to spend some time away from you right now, because like you're not gonna be what leads me to that next place. So I think just being able to take account of like, what are the things I can keep, what are the things I can let go of. I say the majority of it probably are things you're gonna have to let go of. Right. That's the first step. And then just allowing yourself kind of to again mourn that old you, shed that skin. And then the minute you feel like, okay, because here's the thing, you will get tired of not doing anything. You will get tired of like, we all like, we're all kind of like, when we have too much of something, we want the other side of it, right?
100%.
Naturally. So when you get that, like, I want more, take advantage of that and like learn as much as possible, right? Soak up, find people who are going to inspire you. Go out, be willing to do what I did with Sammy. Go out
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. Hey, oh my God, look at this guy. 10 years later, why is he wearing a suit? Go have coffee with that guy.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with him. People will inspire you, right? And then based on that, either maybe they have something that you want to try,
Yeah.
right? That you want to jump onto, or maybe you just want to kind of, and this is what I realized with Sammy, it's not so much that I wanted to do what Sammy was doing. I just wanted to live that lifestyle, right? Because I related to that
He looked
lifestyle.
like he had his shit together.
Yeah, and then I met Tony, and I'm like, okay, I really want to be a financial manager. No, it wasn't that. It was like, no, I relate to these guys.
Yeah.
Like, this is my DNA. Like, and they're doing well. Find those guys, you know.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, just be willing to kind of like put in the time, put in the work in, like, I'd say becoming a really good trainer, right? And then becoming two sides to it, becoming a really good trainer, becoming a really good salesman. I think it's really important that you have to be able to sell yourself now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So being able to refine those skills, learning, right, about lead generation, if social is your way to go, if it's posting, if you have a condo, right, posting flyers on your condo, if you know people in the past, going through your old contact list, just like get rid of like any kind of ego that you have about like, oh my God, these people are going to judge me because like
Yeah.
I'm starting from scratch, and
Yeah.
let go of that. Like, it doesn't matter. You're at rock bottom. It can't get worse, right? Like, just let go of that. Reach out to as many people. I promise you will catch some fish. Those fish will lead to the next fish as long as you take care of them, right? As long as you're committed, and you don't have to be the best trainer. You just have to be committed to being a better one, right? I tell my clients all the time, I do not know all the answers, but I promise you, if you need an answer, I will do my best to find that answer. And people love that because none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that would honestly be the step. Just find those first two in whatever ways possible, become a really good trainer, work with those three people in refining that craft, and then build from there. And then eventually you probably want to think about like, okay, you probably want to have this in place already, but like, okay, you're not going to just train people forever. You can,
Yeah.
if that makes you happy,
100%.
but you have to reverse engineer it. If I'm here in 20 years, right, and I have 12 clients a day, and I know a lot of people, like barbers especially,
Yeah.
right? I have a really good friend who's a barber, and he's kind of like at that point where he's doing like 12 haircuts a day, and he wants to do all of this content, and he wants to grow the business, but he doesn't have time for it.
Yeah.
So it's like, be willing when you have the time, as
Yeah.
much as you want to get rid of that time to make money,
Yeah.
like there's an opportunity in everything,
And you which you might not have in the future, right?
which you might not have in the future. Exactly.
Maybe one last quick question, man. I'm curious to see how you answer this one. If you can go back in time, would you still start in wealth management, or would you head straight into personal training?
Oh, I feel so lucky in how things worked out. I think that like for so many reasons it was just perfect timing. I wanted to be like, credit to my dad for this one. I tell him all the time now. I went through like a bit of a relationship with my father where he was my hero, then I villainized him, and now I'm in that phase where I'm humanizing him and I'm appreciating him for all of the things he did. And when I was younger, he always kind of recognized that ambition in me. I was like, Dad, I want to be a personal trainer. And he's like, you could do better. And I went through a period where I was like, why did he limit me like that? And then I realized now that like, if I didn't meet you guys, if I didn't go through wealth management, well, I wouldn't have become the businessman that I am. And that would have made me another trainer who's at a gym, who's selling his time for money, who ends up hating his passion eventually.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like everything I did led to this moment. Right. And like, it was the perfect moment. And now when I tell my father about this, he's super excited. Right. He's like, dude, this content thing, like, you got something here. I think this could be. And it's like, I get it, Dad. You were just like, you knew a little bit more than I did about like, just be patient with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You're like, if you love something, you can go into it right away, but like, you are going to make so many different, like you're going to mess up so many different times, right? Just trying to figure things out. It's better to do that than like try to rush to figure things out right away, because you might end up in a situation in which you have a massive anchor and you're stuck in that lifestyle. And now, as much as you want to kind of move around, you can't. So at the beginning of your life, when you're working towards something, be able to dip your feet in so many different pools so you can learn from different aspects of life. And then when you finally do your thing, it's going to lead to a great outcome. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%, brother.
Okay, cool.
100%, man. It's been a pleasure, Jay. Thanks for being on. Maybe just before we let you go, where can the audience, listeners find you, your socials?
Yeah, so I'm on everything.
Yeah.
I would say Instagram is where I have the most of my content. I just posted my first macronutrient book. So basically, I took this whole year of working with clients who are primarily beginning their fitness journeys, taking all of the things that really taught them well about nutrition and how to optimize for fitness. I put it in a book. It's free right now. You just got to follow me on Instagram. It's at Gates to Fitness. I'm all on all other platforms too if you don't have Instagram. But yeah, you can find me there. And yeah, feel free if you have any questions about anything. I do this for a living, but it's also a passion. If you have a question about like, why is this happening with regards to my nutrition? How can I do this? Shoot me a question, man. It's always a pleasure to deal with fitness fanatics and people who eventually want to become fitness fanatics.
Love it, man.
Good catching up, brother.
I love, brother. Nice one. And on to the next episode, guys. Thanks for listening.